Hello and a very good evening to you. I'm Katie Wilson and you're watching A News. Let's take a look at tonight's top stories. Israel and Hamas edge closer to a Gaza ceasefire as talks begin in Egypt. The Prime Minister of France, Sébastien Lecornu, resigns just hours after forming his cabinet. And the Nobel Prize in Medicine has been announced as Nobel Week begins. Delegations of Israel and Hamas leaders have gathered in Egypt for talks to end the war in Gaza. Pressure is mounting on all sides to reach an agreement that could bring the start of relief after nearly 2 years of war.
Israeli and Hamas officials have gathered in the Egyptian city of Sharm el-Sheikh to discuss the terms of President Donald Trump's 20-point plan. The talks will focus on the proposal to swap all Israeli hostages for Palestinian prisoners. Egypt's foreign ministry expressed hope that the talks will help end the 2-year conflict and ease the suffering of Palestinians. US President Donald Trump welcomed the progress. He said talks had been very successful and were proceeding rapidly. He urged all parties to move fast and said the first phase of the deal could be completed this week.
We had some very good meetings. The countries of the world, a lot of the countries surrounding Israel, frankly, Muslim, Arab, and many others have had great meetings with Hamas, and it looks like it's working. So we'll wait for a little while, see how it all turns out.
Trump's proposal includes a ceasefire for hostages deal, a phased Israeli withdrawal, and a demilitarized Gaza under international oversight. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu also expressed cautious optimism. He said a major breakthrough could come during the Sukkot holiday and that all Israeli hostages might be released soon. However, he emphasized that Israel's military presence in Gaza would continue. Netanyahu warned that talks would not last long and said Hamas must disarm, either through diplomacy or force. Some members of Netanyahu's cabinet criticised the talks. Finance Minister Bezalel Smotrich called the deal a serious mistake, while National Security Minister Itamar Ben-Gvir said his faction would leave the government if Hamas survives politically after the hostages are freed. Hamas accepted the US proposal in principle on Friday and says it's ready for mediated talks. The international community has welcomed the move and called for both sides to take this chance to end the conflict. In addition to Egypt and Qatar, other Arab countries such as Saudi Arabia, Jordan and the UAE also expressed support for Trump's peace plan.
Israel says that 171 activists from the Gaza Aid Flotilla, including Swedish climate activist Greta Thunberg, has been deported to Greece and Slovakia today. It's the second time Thunberg has been deported by Israel after unsuccessfully trying to reach Gaza by sea. Around 470 people were aboard more than 40 civilian boats when the global Samud Flotilla was intercepted by Israel last week. Now, over in France, the country's latest Prime Minister, Sébastien Lecornu, has resigned just weeks after his appointment, plunging the country into fresh political crisis. All eyes are now on President Emmanuel Macron as he faces growing pressure to restore stability.
France is once again facing political uncertainty after Prime Minister Sébastien Lecornu's sudden resignation, just hours after presenting his new cabinet. Lecornu, France's 5th Prime Minister in less than 2 years, quit just hours after naming a new cabinet on Sunday. On Monday, he announced his resignation, citing deep political divisions and the inability to form a stable majority in parliament.
Being Prime Minister is a difficult task, probably a little more difficult at the moment, but one cannot be a Prime Minister when the conditions are not met. For 3 weeks, however, I have tried to build the conditions under which we could adopt a budget for France, for the state, but also for social security, and respond to some important emergencies that cannot wait until 2027 and the presidential election.
He now departs the role after just 27 days, making him the country's shortest-serving prime minister since 1958, with little to show for his time in office. Lecornu had replaced his predecessor François Bayrou in September to become France's fourth prime minister in just under a year, during a prolonged period of political instability. Since taking office, Lecornu had come under increasing pressure in recent weeks as he struggled to pass a budget through France's fractured parliament amid a debt crisis. His resignation marks yet another blow to President Emmanuel Macron, who is now under pressure to find a new leader capable of restoring political stability. Political parties on both the left and right on Monday were scathing about Lecornu, Macron, and the ongoing political turmoil being overseen by the centre-right. The left called for the revival of a coalition made up of leftists, socialists, Greens, and communists, while Jean-Luc Mélenchon of the far-left France Unbowed party called for Macron to be impeached. The political upheaval leaves France at a crossroads, with citizens and lawmakers alike watching closely to see whether President Macron can lead the country out of another government crisis or if instability will continue to define French politics in the coming months.
Staying with France, we turn to what the French people are thinking in response to Sébastien Lecornu's resignation. Here's more.
I expected it because President Macron doesn't listen to anything, and it took him a month to appoint a government that is almost the same as the previous one. So we expected it. There's been no change.
I think that now we'll have to return to the votes of the French people. That is to say, we will have to either go through a dissolution of parliament or perhaps even the resignation of the president, which was not ideal before because we did not want more instability. But today, given the situation in the National Assembly, the resignation of Sébastien Lecornu demonstrates the fact that we cannot continue like this and that, at some point, a new majority will have to emerge to be able to have a stable government and resolve the problems that France is experiencing today.
I will be 80 years old. I've never seen anything like this. It's every man for himself. Everyone wants to have their own way. It's not normal. I'm almost ashamed even to be French.
Too much change. I mean, there's instability. It creates stress. It also generates anxiety among the public. So at some point, we're going to have to really sit down and think and reflect collectively to be able to make the right decisions, simply speaking.
British police are investigating an arson attack on a mosque in southern England. Emergency services were called late on Saturday night after flames tore through the building, causing significant damage. A vehicle parked outside was also destroyed, though no one was injured. Police described the incident as an appalling and reckless attack. This comes just days after a deadly assault at a synagogue in Manchester, where 2 people were killed before the assailant was shot dead by police. Now, the Conservative Party in the UK is making headlines with a new immigration plan. They're promising to deport 750,000 people living in Britain illegally, but the announcement has also reignited a broader debate about the country's approach to migration. Our correspondent Zainab Farajzada has more from Manchester.
Britain's government opposition, the Conservative Party, has unveiled an ambitious and controversial new immigration plan. Party leader Keir Starmer says a future Conservative government would aim to remove 750,000 people living in the UK illegally over the next 5 years. Her proposal includes a dedicated removal force inside the Home Office with a doubled annual budget of £1.6 billion, funded partly by shutting down asylum hotels. The plan would also scrap legal aid for immigration cases and court appeals for rejected asylum seekers, shifting those decisions to Home Office officials. Starmer says Britain must even be ready to leave the European Convention on Human Rights if judges block deportations. While the plan has grabbed headlines, few expect it to take effect soon. The party currently holds just over 100 seats in Parliament, making it more of a message to voters than a blueprint for government. The Conservatives are not in power, and even if they were, deporting 150,000 people a year would require a tenfold increase in removals. Official figures show only about 9,000 people were deported in the past year, despite a rise in enforcement and voluntary returns. The governing Labour Party, meanwhile, is pursuing its own strategy. Prime Minister Keir Starmer's government says it wants to restore trust in the system by cutting net migration and tightening visa rules for work and family reunification. It's already reduced the number of dependents allowed under student and health worker visas and signed new returns agreements with countries like France and Albania. Meanwhile, the Reform Party, currently the most popular party in polls, is calling for targeted immigration enforcement combined with better support for integration. The approach aims to reduce illegal immigration without disrupting the workforce for overhauling the legal system entirely. But business groups, particularly in agriculture and social care, warn that reducing migration too sharply could worsen labour shortages. Zeynep Fererzadeh, News, Manchester, United Kingdom.
Now, Russian strikes on Ukraine killed 5 people and damaged energy facilities, leaving tens of thousands without power and prompting Poland to bolster its ground defences over the past day. Lviv suffered its largest attack of the war, where an entire family of 4 were killed. Ukraine's Air Force reported 496 drones and 53 missiles, with most being intercepted. President Volodymyr Zelensky said the strikes deliberately targeted civilian and energy facilities. Meanwhile, Ukrainian overnight shelling hit Russia's Belgorod region, damaging power lines and leaving over 5,000 people without electricity. That's according to the regional governor. Russian President Vladimir Putin has warned that providing long-range Tomahawk missiles to Ukraine could destroy relations with the United States. In a video released on Sunday, Putin said such rockets capable of striking deep into Russia would be a red line. The comment comes after US Vice President J.D. Vance confirmed last month that Washington is considering Ukraine's request. Well, here to help us unpack all of this from Kyiv is Professor of Politics at Kyiv Mohyla Academy, Alexei Haran. Thank you for joining us, Professor. Now, could you talk us through why Ukraine is requesting these Tomahawk missiles? What's the strategy here?
Well, the strategy is to have enough possibilities to have deep strikes inside Russia. This is very modern weapon, very sophisticated, so definitely it would be helpful to us. Actually, what we are doing now, Ukraine is doing. Ukraine also has its own drones, and recently Ukraine started to use Ukrainian cruise missiles, which are called Flamingo, and these strikes are also important. So we are trying to have deep strikes against Russian energy infrastructure, oil refineries, etc. However, definitely Tomahawk is much, I would say, is more powerful weapon. However, here I would say that it's very difficult for me to imagine now that the United States, given Trump's position in relations with Putin, will provide us with tomahawks. I don't think we should pay much attention to what Putin is saying, because Putin is threatening the West all the time. When he attacked Europe, he said that if there would be any supply of weapons to Ukraine, Russia would continue it as an enemy, this country as an enemy, and will have possibility to respond. And there was no response.
So the Kremlin spokesperson, Dmitry Peskov, he's playing this down and he's saying that it won't change the situation on the front line if Ukraine were to have access to these long-range weapons. What do you think? Do you think having access to this could bring Moscow to the negotiating table?
Well, I would say it will be helpful, I think. Look, what is important that we need we need weapons, definitely, to have anti-missile systems, but also possibilities to have deep strikes inside Russia. If there is more possibilities to destroy Russian energy objects, definitely it would be helpful for Ukraine. So I think it would be a step in the right direction. And what Europe is doing, because United States, they are saying now under Trump, they are not going to supply weapons for free, so we need to buy it. So what European allies are saying, okay, we will buy it from the United States and will supply it to Ukraine. And what Europeans are doing is very, very important now. However, the question is also about what kind of weapons the United States will provide. And here comes the question of tomahawks. Again, I don't think we should pay attention to Putin's threats, but I don't think that Trump, he's hesitating all the time. He's saying, oh, today is the deadline for more sanctions against Putin. Next day, in a week, he's saying, well, today is the day when we will retaliate with more sanctions. And all the sanctions are postponed all the time. So I'm not sure that he will do a strong step forward and will supply tomahawks to Ukraine. At least I am not very sure about it. Well, maybe he will show that he is going, yes, to send strong messages to Russia. But from what Trump is doing, I am a bit skeptical.
So Washington's tone has changed, and you've touched upon this, and the tone has recently shifted in favour to Ukraine. Are you buying that, or is it a concern that Trump's tone does seem to shift in regards to this war?
Okay. Yes, thank you for your question. Definitely the tone changed. Now it's much more in favor of Ukraine, because previously it was in favor of Russia, actually. So I think this is good. But what we need not words, but deeds. You see, as I have said, Trump was threatening Putin with new sanctions all the time, and no sanctions. So actually, I think that Putin is, at this point, he is laughing at the United States and Trump. They consider him as a weak. So we need to see, serious steps from President Trump, not just good rhetoric.
And what about the viability of this? How viable is it to send Tomahawk missiles to Ukraine?
How viable?
How viable is it? Does the US have the supplies ready to send?
I'm not sure that if they are ready to send. Mm-hmm. I have already responded.
Are the supplies there, or are there doubts that the US may need them for their own needs?
I have doubts about Tomahawk.
Mm-hmm. And does the US have those?
The other types of weapons, as I explained, now Europeans are buying these weapons from the United States to Ukraine. What is also important, actually very, very important, is to share intelligence data with Ukraine, because previously Americans, shared reconnaissance data with Ukraine, and this was really important. So it's important that this would continue.
Thank you very much for your insights and for joining us on the programme.
Thank you very much.
Well, joining us now from Moscow is Dmitry Babich, Deputy Foreign Editor at Komsomolskaya Pravda Daily. Thank you for being with us. Now, President Putin says that supplying Tomahawk missiles to Ukraine would destroy its relationship with Washington. Is there much of a relationship there to begin with?
Well, certainly there is an important relationship between Russia and the United States, simply because these are the two biggest superpowers, biggest nuclear superpowers in the world. So from a pragmatic point of view, it makes sense for Trump to pay attention to what Russia thinks or says. Believe me, no one in Russia is happy about the losses inflicted by our strikes on Ukraine's civilian population. We view this population as our brothers and sisters. We try only to strike military targets, but certainly how tragic it is when you have a war between nations with very, very similar histories and with very similar languages. So I would not respond to what Mr. Garan is saying about our evil intentions. I can only say, let's not talk about the past for the moment. Let's talk about the future. The idea that Mr. Zelensky will get Tomahawk missiles, that he will be able to strike Moscow and even the Volga region with Tomahawk missiles is very dangerous. And I think Trump understands it. The main problem, there is also a technical problem with that, because there are only two working Typhoon batteries. Typhoon is a system that allows Tomahawk missiles to be used by US ground forces. So America has very few of these systems, and it wants to keep them to itself. There's a very little chance that Zelensky will get one or even two of these systems which are under Mr. Trump's control. And certainly Mr. Trump is very unwilling to give Ukraine a chance to destroy the Kremlin, to destroy Moscow, to make a really deadly strike at Russia.
Now, sticking with President Trump has said that Putin isn't interested in peace, and he's disappointed with Putin for not making peace. What do you make of those comments?
I think that Trump is indeed disappointed, but not in the sense that Ukraine would like to see. Trump expected Russia to win. He expected Russia to win in 2022. He expected Russia to win this summer. That's why he talked in a rude way to Zelensky in spring, saying that you have no cards. So that didn't happen. Trump was disappointed because obviously now he has to look for a real compromise. He hoped that there would be just an almost total Russian victory, and that he would be able to iron out a few differences between Russia and Ukraine. No, unfortunately, the task is more complicated. If he wants to be a peacemaker, he will have to take risks. He will have to oppose the Ukrainian government. He will have to have problems with his European allies. So he underestimated the difficulties that he would face if he really wants to be a peacemaker. That's why he is disappointed. But certainly he is not disappointed in the person of Putin himself. If you look at Trump's messages, they are never insulting towards Putin. He wants to have Russia and President Putin on his side. He understands, I mean, Trump understands that the European Union hates him, that European politicians are not
how interested is Putin? How interested is Putin in this relationship with Trump? We're looking at Russian drone incursions into NATO airspace. Is Putin indicating that he's interested in this relationship with Washington?
Well, let me tell you that I don't believe in the theory that these were deliberate invasions of Russian drones into European airspace. If you look how it all happened, this all is very strange. You know, Poland reported 19 Russian drones without any explosives crossing into its territory. Ukraine has a lot of Russian drones at its disposal, Russian-made drones, some of them unexploded. So that could be a provocation. And certainly it didn't make any sense for Russian fighter jets to breach Estonian airspace for 12 minutes. You know,
you don't believe it was a test of NATO's response, resilience? You don't believe it was testing NATO?
No, I don't believe that it makes sense to test it right now, because obviously relations between Russia and the European Union are very tense, so it makes absolutely no sense for Russia to put them to a test. You know, the attitude like, let's see what happens, that's not a Russian attitude. That's the European attitude, unfortunately. You know, when Europe says, let's give Tomahawk missiles to Zelensky and then see what happens, this is irresponsible, because you are dealing with a nuclear power. As for Putin's strategy, I can tell you it's very simple. Putin wants security. You know, he wants Ukraine to stop being a threat to Russia. If you read,
now we're going to have to leave it there. We are running out of time, but thank you so much for providing your insights and for joining us on the programme.
Thank you.
The Nobel Prize in Physiology or Medicine this year has been awarded jointly to Mary E. Brunko, Fred Ramsdell and Shimon Sakaguchi for their groundbreaking discoveries on peripheral immune tolerance. This year's prize relates to how we keep our immune system under control so we can fight microbes and still avoid autoimmune diseases.
Scientists Mary Brunkow, Fred Ramsdell, both based in the US, and Shimon Sakaguchi, based in Japan, have jointly won the 2025 Nobel Prize in Physiology or Medicine. The award is for their discoveries in peripheral immune tolerance. In other words, they researched into how to prevent the immune system from harming the body. According to the prize-giving organization, the discoveries have laid the foundation for a new field of research. It's also spurred the development of new treatments in illnesses such as cancer and autoimmune diseases. The winners will receive a prize sum of 11 million Swedish krona. That's the equivalent of $1.2 million, as well as a gold medal presented by Sweden's king. Past recipients of the Nobel Prize in Physiology or Medicine include renowned scientists such as Alexander Fleming, who shared the 1945 award for discovering penicillin. In recent years, the prize has recognized major breakthroughs, including those that enabled the development of COVID-19 vaccines. Last year's Medicine Prize was awarded to US scientists Victor Ambros and Gary Ruvkun for their discovery of microRNA and its key role in how multicellular organisms grow and live. More than a century after their inception, the Nobel Prizes remain steeped in tradition. The awards culminate in ceremonies attended by the royal families of Sweden and Norway, followed by lavish banquets held on the 10th of December, the anniversary of Alfred Nobel's death.
The Iranian Navy commander has arrived in Russia to take part in a meeting with the Caspian Sea Navy commander. The move is part of Iran strengthening its strategic ties. Taraz Shiralilu has more from the Iranian capital.
The commander of Iran's Navy, Rear Admiral Shahram Irani, arrived in St. Petersburg Sunday evening to participate in the meeting of the Navy commanders of the Caspian Sea. We'll be exchanging views on multilateral and bilateral cooperation with his counterparts from Azerbaijan, Kazakhstan, and Russia. He will also pay a visit to Russia's naval bases in the Gulf of Finland, the lead frigate Admiral Grigorovich, and the Central Naval Museum, according to the IRNA news agency. His visit comes as the comprehensive strategic partnership treaty between Iran and Russia began last Thursday and will be enforced for 20 years. It lays down enhanced cooperation between Tehran and Moscow in bilateral fields as well as within regional and international groups. Prior to its enforcement, the Iranian and Russian navies have maintained close relations. Their joint hybrid drill, the Caspian Sea Search and Rescue Exercise 2025, was hosted by Iran last July under the slogan, "Together for a safe and secure Caspian Sea." As well as strengthening relations with Moscow, Tehran has signed a comprehensive document on cooperation with Beijing, valid for 25 years. Iran's Navy held the 7th Maritime Security Belt naval exercise in March this year in the northern Indian Ocean, involving naval units from the Army and the Revolutionary Force IRGC. Warships from Russia and China and observers from regional countries also participated. Meanwhile, Tehran and Ankara have also discussed bilateral defense ties and regional developments after the Iranian Defense Minister, Brigadier General Aziz Nasirzadeh, visited the neighboring Turkey last week. Turaj Shiralilu, Tehran, A-News TV.
President Ilham Aliyev met with the Secretary-General of the Organization of Turkic States in Azerbaijan. Kubanichbek Omar Aliyev thanked the Azerbaijani president for the country's support in strengthening cooperation among member and observer countries and for helping raise the organization's international profile. The upcoming 12th summit of the heads of state of the Organization of Turkic States, to be held in Gabala, will focus on key issues of the organization's agenda. President Aliyev said he was confident the summit would help deepen friendship, solidarity and partnership across the Turkic world. Both sides also discussed future cooperation between Azerbaijan and the organization. Now, from Gabala, A-News spoke with the Turkish Foreign Minister Hakan Fidan about regional cooperation and security as the summit gets underway. His remarks focused on promoting stability through conflict resolution, equal economic cooperation and sustainable partnerships.
Bizim biliyorsunuz dış politikamızın şu anda temel ayağını oluşturan husus bölgemizde.
As you know, the main pillar of our current foreign policy is to establish stability in our region. There are several conditions for achieving stability. First, to calm or end wars and conflicts as much as possible. Second, to develop economic cooperation on an equal basis so that everyone can share in prosperity. Third, to institutionalize relations and regional structures, to make them more sustainable. It is with this perspective that we are working in our region. You can see this approach both in our relations with the Turkic world and in the regional initiatives we carry out together. Look at the Middle East, the Caucasus, the Balkans, the Mediterranean and the Black Sea. The foreign policy vision set out by our president and the efforts led by Turkey all move in this direction. Therefore, we use Turkey's regional strength, prestige and leadership to bring stability to the region. Unfortunately, in previous periods, the dominant perception of international relations was either competition, submission, or domination. Now we have moved beyond that, embracing a foreign policy based on cooperation, stability, and a more humane and moral approach that benefits everyone. And we continue on this path.
We also spoke to Northern Cyprus President Ersin Tatar, whose country is not recognised by the United Nations. He underscored Azerbaijan's support on the issue of recognition and emphasised that a lasting solution requires a two-state model based on mutual respect and recognition.
Because I know that he visits frequently other countries, Mr. Aliyev, and wherever he goes, one of the issues is Cyprus, because there is a dispute in Cyprus, it's the seas around, and strategically it's a very important island, both for Turkey and Azerbaijan. So often when they meet these foreigners, the Cyprus subject comes up. And wherever he is, he gives us a lot of strong support, which basically is very, very important for me. Mr. Aliyev is a long-time friend of Mr. Erdogan. I've got to know him since 2022, obviously. But his determination to support the Turkish Cypriots is very welcome in Cyprus. I've been sharing what we discussed with our people in Cyprus, and Mr. İlham Aliyev is a real good friend of me and the Turkish Cypriots. I mean, he's giving us a little support, obviously within limits, but he is basically saying that the only way forward in Cyprus, if we are going to find a solution, would be a two-state solution. See, because the two sides have had a state for the last 60 years, and all in all, obviously, a two-state solution, because one state would be the Turkish Cypriot state, the other state would be a Greek Cypriot state. But for you to be able to achieve this, you need the Greeks to recognize the reality that we should be tolerating each other and we should be respecting each other.
Also present was Kazakhstan's president, who arrived in the country on a visit at the invitation of President Aliyev. Our correspondent from Kazakhstan, Fariza Kalimurzina, has more.
The 12th summit of the Council of Heads of the Turkic States Organization is underway amid growing economic integration among Turkic countries. Last year, total trade between member states reached $180 million, while their combined GDP topped $2 trillion. Kazakhstan plays a key role in this development, with trade volumes exceeding $11 billion. At the previous summit, President Kassym-Jomart Tokayev proposed creating a council of central banks for the Turkic states, and Kazakhstan has since ratified a law establishing a simplified customs corridor for the member countries. Building on these initiatives, transport infrastructure has become a central focus of economic cooperation. Kazakhstan sees the Middle Corridor, a major trans-Caspian route connecting East and West, as a flagship project for the organization. And with 80% of overland trade between China and Europe passing through the country, President Tokayev highlights the corridor's potential as one of the most reliable and secure logistical bridges between Asia and Europe. Last year, container shipments on Kazakhstan's section surged by 62%, reaching 4.5 million tons, and the country aims to double this volume within 3 years. This route not only brings substantial economic benefits, but also positions Kazakhstan as both a major producer and a key consumer. In this context, Azerbaijan plays a vital role, acting as a key hub and strengthening regional ties. Reflecting this growing partnership, trade between Kazakhstan and Azerbaijan totaled $331.7 million in the first half of this year, marking a 4.8% increase compared to the same period last year. Kazakhstan mainly exports wheat, oil and petroleum products, while imports from Azerbaijan include pipes, aluminum profiles and food products. These trade ties highlight the complementary nature of the two economies and reflect Kazakhstan's multi-vector foreign policy, which seeks to strengthen partnerships both within the Turkic world and globally. Fariza Kalimurzina, Almaty, A-News.
Uzbekistan is expanding its cooperation with American companies within the energy sector. Several major agreements have been signed in recent days, including projects in oil distribution, biofuel production and modernization of gas infrastructure. Seva Rajapova reports from Tashkent.
American energy company Gulf Oil will build up to 100 gas stations across Uzbekistan under a $100 million memorandum signed with Uzbekneftgaz. Fuel will be purchased with the stock exchange or imported independently with no special supply privileges from the state company. The network is expected to increase competition and improve service quality in the retail fuel market. In addition, Allied Biofuels will invest about $5.9 billion in constructing a large biorefinery in the south of the country, in the Khorzim region. The facility will produce sustainable aviation fuel, electrosynthetic fuels, and green diesel using renewable energy sources. The project is designed to generate around 382,000 tons of aviation fuel annually and will be the first one of its kind in Central Asia. During President Shavkat Mirziyoyev's visit to New York for the anniversary session of the United Nations General Assembly at the end of September, Uzbekistan and the US also agreed on projects worth between $3 and $4 billion. The deal focuses on modernization of the gas transportation network and the introduction of advanced technologies in production and infrastructure. The cooperation includes the electrification and renewal of gas compressor stations, as well as border modernization efforts. Companies such as Air Products, Schlumberger, and Baker Hughes are expected to participate, while the U.S. Export-Import Bank may provide financing worth $852 million, according to reports. Uzbekistan says these projects reflect the country's strategy to diversify its energy market, attract foreign investment, and develop both traditional and green energy sectors. It is Sivil Rajapov reporting from Tashkent, Uzbekistan, A News.
In regional developments, Afghanistan's economic and diplomatic engagements continue to expand as Kabul strengthens ties with neighbouring and regional partners. Our correspondent Tamim Bahis has more from Kabul.
Afghanistan's Minister of Industry and Commerce, Nuruddin Azizi, met with Turkey's ambassador to Kabul, Cenk Onal, to discuss boosting bilateral trade, facilitating transit routes, and encouraging foreign investment in Afghanistan. During the meeting, Ambassador Onal extended an official invitation for Minister Azizi to attend the 5th meeting of Trade Ministers of Economic Cooperation Organization, or ECO, set to take place in Istanbul from November 24th to 26th this year. The Turkish envoy also invited Azizi to participate in the Halal Expo 2025, which will be held in Istanbul from November 27th to 30th, an event expected to draw significant international business interest. These developments follow Afghanistan's recent participation in the 17th ECO summit in Azerbaijan, where Deputy Prime Minister Abdul Ghani Brother represented the country. The gathering emphasized regional economic integration and connectivity. With growing participation in regional forums and talks on key infrastructure projects, Afghanistan appears eager to strengthen its role in the region's economic landscape. Tamim Bahis in Kabul, A News.
3 years ago today, Armenia and Azerbaijan took a key step towards peace in Prague. The historic 2022 meeting saw both countries recognise each other's territorial integrity. Let's take a look back at that day and its importance.
Armenia and Azerbaijan are moving steadily along the path to peace. Some of these steps were laid exactly 3 years ago, on this very day. On October 6th, 2022, Baku and Yerevan recognized each other's territorial integrity. This historic moment occurred during the European Political Community Summit in Prague. The meeting took place with the participation of former European Council President Charles Michel, French President Emmanuel Macron, and Turkish President Recep Tayyip Erdogan. The main outcomes of the meeting included the recognition of each other's territorial integrity and sovereignty by Armenia and Azerbaijan. The parties also referred to the UN Charter and the 1991 Alma-Ata Declaration. Based on these documents, they agreed to begin the process of preparing a peace agreement. In addition, an agreement was reached to send an EU monitoring mission to Armenia. 3 years ago, in Prague, Azerbaijani President Ilham Aliyev saw the beginning of peace between the two countries. Speaking about the agreement, he stressed the need for a practical and concise approach to cementing lasting peace.
I am sure that this can be achieved quickly. I don't think it should be a multi-volume document. It should be a reasonably compact document, consisting of several articles defining the parameters within the framework of international law and international practice. This will close the page of war and enmity.
And 3 years later, that beginning sparks of peace has turned into real progress. In 2025, Azerbaijan and Armenia signed a US-brokered peace declaration in Washington, D.C., aiming to end the conflict, reopen transport routes, and normalize relations. Also, Nikol Pashinyan, the Prime Minister of Armenia, after 3 years, described October 6, 2022, as a defining moment in his country's political transformation. He said it was on that day that he truly began leading Armenia as an independent nation, not as anyone's outpost.
I know the day when I transformed into a full-fledged Prime Minister of the Republic of Armenia, and since then and to this day, I act following exclusively this logic. It is October 6, 2022, when I became the first head of the Republic of Armenia to recognize the territorial integrity of the Republic of Armenia.
Analysts described it as a turning point in the peace process, as it was the first time both sides officially recognized each other's existence on the map at the international level.
After 2022, Armenia got sidelined from these discussions, which became effectively an internal matter for Azerbaijan. I think most of the issues are of technical nature. So if we compare it with the previous time, for example, 2020 time, we had a lot of political issues that were to be addressed. Now we don't have these political issues.
Today, 3 years on from that historic day in Prague, the South Caucasus stands closer to lasting peace than ever before.
Police in Georgia have arrested 5 people after clashes with anti-government protesters trying to storm the presidential palace in Tbilisi. The protest took place on the same day as local elections, which the opposition is largely boycotting, following a government crackdown. Georgian Dream won majorities in every municipality with more than 80% of the vote. Joining us now to discuss all of this is political analyst Dr. Vakhtang Maisaya. Thank you for being with us. Now, what are the latest developments over in Tbilisi?
Thank you very much for having me with you. You are absolutely right. Situation in Tbilisi is predominantly calm. And about 2 days ago, we held about massive rallies against unfair elections, which ought to be held in the same day on the Saturday, 4 October, local election it means. And of course, it was like provocation when of course some persons they began a strike and storm the president palace. And this storm was repulsed by the police special destination units. And I would like to mention these 5 persons were arrested and detained. I would mention that the 5th president of Georgia, Salom Zurabishvili, and 2 leaders of the political opposition parties, they also disclaimed and also votes against these actions. And of course, distorted from gaining support to such kind of radical actions. But however, the peaceful rally, it's on its own stance. It's already 312 days when the Georgian people also latently dissatisfied and also protest and express their protest against anti-Western foreign policy. And of course, broken the constitutional principles, which was have done by the incumbent prime ministers Irakli Kobakidze, who absolutely really conduct a constitutional coup d'etat.
So what was behind the opposition boycotting the election? What was the strategy there?
Well, this strategy was about that. First of all, recognition that this parliamentary election, which was held on October last year, October 26th, was falsified and been distorted from any fair elections provisions. Of course, to release political prisoners, which nowadays we have in Georgia about 50, people being arrested illegally and been kept in the prison cells. Second, to get back and reverse to the constitutional frame, which was absolutely deputed on November 28, 2024, when the Constitution's Article 78 directly indicated that Georgia government has to do everything in a way that Georgia membership to NATO and European Union will become absolutely relevantly true and relevantly to become the real story. So, and again, these constitutional principles was absolutely being stepped against. This was stepped by the incumbent Georgian government, which absolutely refused to comply with this constitutional principle. This was main just features why Georgian people are on the streets.
And what does Georgian
many,
Dream have to say about all of this? Have we had a response from Georgian Dream?
What?
What does Georgian Dream have to say about all of this?
Well, the Georgian Dreams, they have absolutely their own way. So, because they also show very low just about rate, if we compare any other previous elections, because actually just even though they mentioned that Georgian Dream leaders, Mayor just Kakakaladze in Tbilisi, only received 20% of the votes of all Georgian Tbilisi citizens. It's very lowest just about result what Georgian Dream has so far. So this also indicated that Georgian people, at least in the big cities like Georgia, Tbilisi, Batumi, Kutaisi, etc., they're absolutely unsatisfied with ongoing policy provisions of the incumbent government. They're also against about those just about anti-democratic just rulership of the incumbent government. And of course, they express their latent unsatisfactions and protest to the governmental steps and governmental itself. So this is about, but the Georgian government, Georgian incumbent government, was led by the ruling party, Georgian Dream, also just about going on its way. And of course, it's also causing Georgia an absolutely political isolation. Clash with absolutely civilized society of the international world, I mean. And of course, it means that about democracy also been suffered from their actions and activities. This is the main implications.
Thank you very much for bringing us your insights there from Tbilisi and for joining us on the programme.
Thank you very much.
Well, that's all we have for now from all of us in the studio. Thank you for watching and stay tuned to A News.